Gaza cut in half as bombing shows no signs of slowing down. Israeli strike in Lebanon kills journalists' relatives. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today and I'm Otto Othman. Israel said it was pounding Gaza with significant strikes after cutting it into two, a South Gaza and a North Gaza. Shortly before the strikes, internet and telephone lines were cut and the strikes would continue overnight and in the days to come. With telecommunications in Gaza cut for a third time, Washington rebuffed calls for a ceasefire and backed Israel's goal of crushing Hamas. Global concern has soared over the spiraling Gaza death toll, but Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu again vowed that there won't be a ceasefire until the hostages are returned. Soldiers engaged in house-to-house combat on Sunday as tanks and armored bulldozers churned through the sand in footage released by the army. Israel has distributed leaflets and sent text messages urging Palestinian civilians in northern Gaza to head south. But a U.S. official said at least 350,000 civilians remained in what is now an urban war zone. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas denounced the genocide and destruction suffered by its people and at the hands of Israel's war machine with no regard for the principles of international law. Meantime, Gazans said Israeli airstrikes on the besieged enclave had already done more damage than a nuclear bomb, reacting to an Israeli minister appearing to voice openness to the idea of carrying out a nuclear strike on the territory.
هو لسه بده يهدد دمرونا ده اصلا المتفجرات اللي رموها علينا تعد اكثر من قنبله نوويه وما ضلش في مكان اصلا اللي شايف انت زي ما شايف هذه الاماكن عندنا احياء سكنيه كامله بمحوا يعني ما خلوش ولا شيء عندنا وبعدين الاصوات اللي بتطلع كانت قبل قويه جدا ويعني غير مدمره الحين صارت تطلع خفيفه وبس مدمره جدا كل ضربه صرنا نسمع 30 40 شهيد يعني فيش ولا ضربه تخلو من الشهداء وبعدين عندك اللي بيهدد لسه بدك تستنى حدا يهدد ليش يهدد خلصوا علينا ما ضلش شيء
هو لسه بنستنى انه القنابل النوويه ما كل يوم برمى جزء من القنبله النوويه كل يوم بيضربوا صواريخ وقنابل بتهد مربعات كامله باحيائها بسكانها فيش في الدنيا استعمار بيعمل حاله ضحيه وبقتل كل يوم 400 واحد في البلد وهي كلها يعني كم كيلو مربع في بعضها الشغله احنا مش قاره يعني لما تنزل فيها القنابل هذه كليتها والهدم هذا كله والرجمان كله هذه كل يوم برمى جزء من القنبله النوويه.
Netanyahu's office issued a statement saying that the minister concerned, Heritage Minister Amichai Eliyahu, from the far-right party in the coalition government, had been suspended from cabinet meetings until further notice. In a related development, foreign nationals said they were stuck in Gaza's Rafah border crossing after evacuations were suspended. Egyptian official sources said the evacuations were suspended after an Israeli strike on an ambulance in Gaza being used to transport injured people. Egyptian, US and Qatari officials said efforts were underway to resume evacuations of injured Gazans and foreign nationals through the Rafah crossing to Egypt. People with German and Egyptian nationality called on their respective governments to help them leave with their families.
نتمنى منهم انه يتدخلوا بشكل اقوى عند كل الاطراف انا بشكرهم على جهودهم وانه طلعوا اسامينا ونسقوا مع الاطراف بس بتمنى وبطلع انه يكون في ضغط اكثر على الاطراف المعنيين ويسهلوا سفرنا باسرع وقت ممكن كل يوم بمر علينا في غزه الخطر بيعلى اكثر
احنا عايزين نطلع ما يربطوش الامور ببعض لازم الجرحى تعدي ولازم احنا كمان نعدي احنا تعبنا انا بقالي 3 ايام بايته هنا في المعبر 3 ايام بايته هنا في المعبر تعبنا والله تعبنا.
The Rafah crossing to Egypt's Sinai Peninsula is the only exit point from Gaza not controlled by Israel. Aid trucks were still able to travel into Gaza. Meanwhile, King Abdullah II has said that Jordan's Air Force has airdropped vital medical aid to a field hospital in Gaza. King Abdullah said it was Jordan's duty to help and that we will always be there for our Palestinian brethren. It's unclear if there was any coordination between Israel and Jordan over the airdrop, and there has been no comment from the Israeli government. A French military airplane carrying 18 tons of humanitarian aid for Gaza arrived in Egypt. Supplies include medicine, food, and generators meant to alleviate the plight of Palestinian civilians in the besieged Gaza Strip. A military plane and crew were chosen to bring the vital supplies to Al Arish, an Egyptian port close to the Palestinian enclave due to the airfield's proximity with the combat area. France also sent the naval vessel Tonnerre to the eastern Mediterranean on what it described as a mission to support Gaza hospitals. Russia also sending humanitarian aid to Gaza, consisting of food, mattresses, pillows, and personal hygiene items. Images published by the Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations show cargo of humanitarian aid being unloaded from a plane in Egypt. The ministry adds that 2 Ilyushin transport planes brought a total of 60 tons of cargo following an order from the Russian President Vladimir Putin. In another development, the official Lebanese news agency said 4 relatives of a journalist were killed in an Israeli strike in southern Lebanon, adding that the journalist was also wounded. The National News Agency, NNA, said the 4 victims are the sister of radio correspondent Samir Ayub and her 3 grandchildren aged 10, 12, and 14. They were following the journalist's car in another vehicle when they were killed. Prime Minister Najib Mikati denounced the attack as an aberrant crime committed by the Israeli army, adding that cars were targeted by drones. Foreign Minister Abdullah Bao Habib said he would bring the matter to the attention of the UN Security Council on Monday. Earlier, 4 rescue workers were injured in an Israeli bombing in southern Lebanon that hit 2 ambulances. NNA said the attack took place at dawn when the 2 ambulances were called to evacuate wounded in the village of Tar Harfa, some 3 kilometers from the border of Israel. The Israeli Zionist army said it had used the drone to target a terrorist cell that attempted to fire from Lebanon toward the area of Rosh Hanikra in northern Israel.
Rakyat Malaysia memang hebat kerana tegas pertahankan hak Palestin. Memang kita jauh dari dunia Arab, kita jauh dari dunia Palestin, kita jauh dari Gaza, tetapi setiap detik berlaku menyentuh hati nurani kita. Kerana apa? Karena kita tahu dan faham arti manusiawi, arti ihsan, arti kemanusiaan, dan lebih penting arti keadilan melawan kezaliman Israel.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he was not ready for talks with Russia unless its invading troops withdraw, as Kyiv investigated a deadly strike on its soldiers. The sprawling front line between the warring sides has remained mostly static for almost a year, despite a much-touted Ukrainian counter-offensive with Russian forces entrenched in southern and eastern Ukraine. Officials from the United States and Europe, Kyiv's key allies, are reported to have suggested holding negotiations to end the grinding 20-month-old conflict, which Zelensky denied. The Ukrainian leader conceded the war is a difficult situation and reiterated his need for more air defenses to end Russia's control of the sky. A Russian missile strike killed multiple Ukrainian soldiers at what media described as an award ceremony this week, leading Kyiv to open a criminal investigation. Local media said the attack, which is reported to have killed at least 20 troops, took place on Friday as a brigade gathered to receive awards in Ukraine's southern Zaporizhzhia region. Zelensky said it is important to establish the full truth about what happened to prevent such incidents from happening again. Meanwhile, in latest Russian strikes, at least 5 people were injured in Odessa, and one of the city's principal art galleries was damaged. Governor of the Odessa region, Ola Kipper, said the Odessa National Art Museum turns 124 years old, but the Russians congratulated the architectural monument with a missile that hit nearby. The walls of the building were damaged, while some windows and glass were broken. The museum, in one of the oldest places of Odessa, housed before the war more than 10,000 pieces of art, including paintings by some of the best-known Russian and Ukrainian artists of late 19th and early 20th century. On the street near the museum, the attack left a several-meter hole, while all 5 of the injured from throughout the city were hospitalized. Still ahead, Hamburg airport hostage drama ends as armed man detained, child freed. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has vowed to work constructively with China as the two countries seek to thaw ice relations. Now, he said that constructive economic engagement between countries helps to build relationships, including the cooperation between Australia and China.
There is, of course, also an important role for government to play in creating the right conditions for business to innovate and thrive, and helping business take advantage of market opportunities. We do that by eliminating unnecessary barriers to trade and investment, by fostering a level playing field, and by working towards inclusive economic growth.
Albanese was speaking at the opening of the China International Import-Export in Shanghai in a high-profile state visit to his country's biggest trading partner. The Prime Minister hailed a mature relationship between Beijing and Canberra, energized by the complementary nature of their economies. The bonhomie is a stark shift in tone from 3 years ago, when bilateral ties were in a deep freeze. China slapped punitive tariffs on a range of Australian commodities in 2020 after Canberra's government barred tech giant Huawei from 5G contracts and called for investigation into the origins of COVID-19. Police arrested a man and rescued a child at the center of a hostage standoff at Hamburg airport on Sunday, ending a crisis that forced authorities to close the busy air hub. Police said the 35-year-old man was with his 4-year-old daughter and was thought to be involved in a custody dispute. The city's police force wrote on X the hostage situation has over, adding that the suspect got out of the car with his daughter and was arrested by the emergency services without resistance. The child appears to be unharmed, and the airport said it was working to resume operations as quickly as possible. A total of 286 flights with around 34,500 passengers had been scheduled for Sunday. The episode raised concerns over security at the airport less than 4 months after climate activists got onto the runway and blocked planes. A caravan of at least hundreds of migrants left from the southern Mexico city of Tapachula, heading for the U.S. southern border. Now, the smaller caravan plans to join a larger one that left 6 days ago and is currently stopped about 40 kilometers north in the town of Huxtla. Organizers said the first caravan had swelled to some 7,000 people, while the government in the southern Chiapas state said it estimated the group at 3,500 people. The group was impatient to get to the U.S. border and start the process to enter the U.S. with appointments secured via a U.S. government application, CBP-1, and request asylum. Many migrants are fleeing poverty and political instability in their homelands, hailing from Cuba, El Salvador, Guatemala, Haiti, and especially Honduras and Venezuela. The record number of people this year have crossed the Darien Gap region, connecting Panama and Colombia. A worker was killed in France's northwestern region of Brittany while repairing damage to the electricity network caused by storms Karen and Domingos, which have claimed 2 other lives in the country. The worker was sent as backup from the Midi-Pyrenees region and was one of 3,400 energy distribution network operator Enedis staff mobilized to deal with the damage caused by the storms. In addition to the 3 deaths, 9 people have been seriously injured due to the 2 storms. Buildings have had their roofs torn off and have been impacted by flooding and falling trees. 247,000 French households were also without electricity due to the storms. Storm Karen was driven by a powerful jet stream that swept in from the Atlantic, unleashing heavy rain and fierce winds that have caused flooding in several Western European countries. Storm Domingos, meanwhile, hit the west coast of France overnight, disrupting rail transport in the region. Now, according to the National Rail Company, SNCF, rail transport in western France and trains between Toulouse and Paris have been heavily impacted by trees falling on tracks due to Storm Domingos. The 5.6 magnitude earthquake hit late Friday. Officials said altogether 105 people died in Jajarkot and another 52 in neighboring Rukum district, with more than 100 injured, and search and rescue operations had been concluded. Many survivors spent the night under the open sky as their mud houses reduced to piles of rubble. Jajarkot district official Harish Chandras Sharma said the focus is now on providing relief to the victims. Friday's quake was felt as far away as India's capital New Delhi, nearly 500 kilometers from the epicenter. The U.S. Geological Survey said the quake was followed several hours later by an aftershock in the same area with a 4.0 magnitude. Britain's Prince William, Prince of Wales, participates in dragon boat training with the British team in Singapore. The Prince is visiting Singapore to attend the Earthshot Prize that aims to reward innovative efforts to combat climate change. The ceremony will take place tomorrow. Hundreds of passengers boarded this year's first so-called floating train from Bangkok before sunrise, crossing a reservoir over a series of viaducts to enjoy the spectacular water views. For most of the year, cattle graze underneath the bridge of the Pasang Jolasid Reservoir. But from October to January, the water is high on both sides, which gives the impression that the train is floating on water. The trip was only publicized in Thai language and not English, so not many foreigners know about the unique experience. Next up in sports, Junhao clinches second World Tour title at KL Masters.
76 minit tanpa henti, 76 minutes non-stop. Transparent and concise. Paparan komprehensif, ringkas dan padat. Saksikan Kanta 744, 7.44 malam. Berita perdana 8 malam. Malaysia Tonight, 8:30 p.m.
National singles shuttler Leong Junhao beat Taiwanese Li Chiahao 22-20, 21-13 in 43-minute final match to claim his second World Tour title after winning the 2023 Kuala Lumpur Masters Badminton Championship yesterday. Junhao started off the first set with 11-6 lead before emerging victorious in a duel of points against the 37th-ranked player. Chiahao tried to mount a comeback in the second set, but was let down by his errors in net play and was unable to stop Junhao from his well-deserved second World Tour title after the Indonesian Masters in Malang in October last year. Junhao dedicated his victory to his family and Badminton Association of Malaysia for supporting him even when he was at his low point.
I dedicate to BM that always trust me even though I'm not performing really well. and my family, and I guess all the supporting staff lah, within, and my teammates also lah. Because coming out to this tournament, I feel that I want to fight for the title, and everyone is hoping me to get the title in here. So for sure the pressure will be on me, and everything I do, everything I play will be very tense. So just keep on focusing until the last point.
Junhao was not the only Malaysian to taste success, as national professional mixed doubles pair Chan Peng Soon, Chia Yi Si were crowned champions after beating Thai's Pakapon Terarat Sakul Patai Mas Maum Nyuang. The Malaysian pair worked hard for their title, winning the first set 21-9, then losing 17-21 in the second, and finally rising to the occasion and winning the 21-10 in the 62nd minute thriller, ending their 6-year drought after their last title win in the Russian Open in 2017. In tennis, after a trio of 3-set battles to reach the final at the Rolex Paris Masters, Novak Djokovic eased past Grigor Dimitrov to claim a record-extending 7th title at the ATP Masters 1000 event. Now, Djokovic delivered a typical resilient all-around performance to clinch a 6-4, 6-3 triumph in 98 minutes and become the first player to win 40 Masters 1000 crowns. Djokovic pulled away from the Bulgarian following a cagey start to the in a largely solid first set display, and that dominance behind his delivery allowed. Over in Mexico, Poland's Iga Swiatek knocked out rival Aryna Sabalenka in the semi-final of the season-ending WTA Finals with a 6-3, 6-2 win, putting the world #1 ranking within her reach ahead of the title match. A cool and collected Swiatek converted on 3 of 7 break points to set up a final showdown with American Jessica Pegula, and she can end the year on top if she is able to hoist the trophy. The match began on Saturday, but officials were forced to suspend the affair with the Pole 2-1 up in the first set due to inclement weather. Swiatek took control immediately when play resumed, converting on a breakpoint chance in the 4th game. Swiatek pumped her fists and cheered wildly as Sabalenka sent one into the nets on match point. She next faces an informed Pegula, who shredded US Open champion Coco Gauff 6-2, 6-1 to reach the title match. Pegula beat Swiatek in their last meeting in the Montreal semi-final. In F1, Red Bull's triple world champion Max Verstappen took a record-extending 17th win of the season in Brazil after leading a red-flagged and restarted Sao Paulo Grand Prix from pole position. McLaren's Lando Norris finished second, 8.2 seconds behind with the bonus point for fastest lap, while Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso took third place on the final lap after a thrilling battle with Red Bull's Sergio Perez. With the Dutch driver's victory always looked inevitable, Alonso provided the late thrills with a dramatic battle with Perez in which he showed all the attacking fire and defensive skill of a double world champion. The Spaniard crossed the finish line just 0.053 seconds ahead of the Mexican after Perez passed him on the penultimate lap, and Alonso, the oldest man in the race at 42, grabbed the place back on the last. Verstappen, now on 52 career wins, clinched the title in Qatar last month, while Red Bull have also retained their constructors' title. The champions have won 19 of the 20 races so far. Ferrari suffered a blow before the race had even started when Charles Leclerc, who had qualified on the front row, crashed out on the formation lap. Norris was the big beneficiary, powering from 6th to 2nd into the first corner and speeding past the two Aston Martins on the inside, while Hamilton did the same on the outside. Now moving on to Saudi Pro League. Al Ahly secured a comprehensive 3-0 home victory against Al Riyadh in Sunday's evening matchup. Saudi forward Feras Al-Brikan opened the scoring for the hosts just 2 minutes in before 21-year-old Spanish midfielder Gabri Vega added a second in the 26th. Another big summer signing in former Manchester City winger and also Algeria international Riyad Mahrez then put the 3 points beyond doubt when he scored his 5th goal of the season shortly after the break. The result sees Al Ahly climb to 4th in the table, 2 points above Al Fateh, who lost 2-0 to league leaders Al Hilal on Friday, while trailing 3rd place Al Tawoun on goal difference. Meanwhile, Luis Diaz made an extraordinary return for Liverpool as he scored a 95th minute equaliser as his team drew 1-1 with Luton Town in the Premier League on Sunday. The 26-year-old was brought on by manager Jurgen Klopp as Liverpool searched for a way back into the game against Premier League strugglers Luton, who had gone ahead shortly before Diaz's introduction thanks to a goal from Tahith Chong. However, just as it seemed as though Liverpool would come away with nothing from a match that they had dominated for the most part, Diaz leaped highest at the back post to meet Harvey Elliott's cross to head the ball beyond Luton goalkeeper Thomas Kaminski. The Colombia international had missed Liverpool's past 2 matches after his mother, Selenis Marulanda, and father, Luis Manuel Diaz, were seized by armed men in northern Colombia. And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, Gaza cut in half as bombing shows no signs of slowing down. Now tune in to Malaysia Tonight coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Otto Othman, Malaysia Madani, Teka Perpaduan, Penuhi Harapan. Thank you for watching.